Hey everyone, it's Carl, and today I want to talk about a adventure design concept called the 5-room dungeon and how Savage Worlds affects that design.
I'm stuck in a deep game, all the tropes are the same. And my armor in a 10-foot hole, all through the dungeon we go. Am I good or am I?
Hey everyone, it's Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. I would love your support because every dollar goes right into being able to buy more Savage World stuff, hopefully get involved in Kickstarters, and then bring all that content to the channel. Thanks much. So anyway, I want to talk about an adventure design concept that's not specific to Savage Worlds, but it's called the 5-room dungeon. There's a lot of places on the internet where people talk about the concept, so I'm going to explain it, and I'm going to throw in a little bit of how Savage Worlds changes how you think about the 5-room dungeon, and maybe some of the impact on it. So let's get started right away. So the 5 areas, we start with what they call the entrance or the guardian. So this is where you get into the dungeon or into we'll use dungeon, but it could be other things too. But this is how you get in there. Usually it helps define while the dungeon has really not been sacked or gone through yet. There's something there protecting it. Some examples might be something like a trap. It could be an actual guardian, like a creature or something like that. Might need some kind of key or something to enter, which you might include as part of sort of the setup to it. Into town, they find this item and now they're able to go. Let's say they're going after a golden dagger that's going to save the kingdom, and it just so happened that one of the priests or the king had this amulet that's used as a key. And that's why the dungeon hasn't been taken care of or gone through. So in Savage Worlds, when we start looking at things like traps and guardians, we have to be careful a little bit, because if you really make traps heavy duty, it's very easy with exploding dice to really take somebody down. They could come before they even get in a dungeon and they could have a couple of wounds, or they could be in a bad spot already before you even start. So just keep that in mind. Maybe that's better to do bumps and bruises. Yes, that's still a -1, but it really gives the sense of danger if somebody doesn't find a trap. Or even the guardian shouldn't be so tough that they could potentially get really knocked down before they get in. Remember, Savage Worlds, again, is not an attrition system. So there's not hit points where, a trap cuts a few hit points off as you go and you're bleeding down those resources. It's really, you could just take someone out with a good damage roll that explodes. Second part of the dungeon, second room, is as you get, now you're in, is a puzzle or kind of a role-playing challenge. So some kind of challenge. So we all know that puzzles can be, use player's knowledge versus character knowledge, but that's a whole nother topic for another video, which Eric and I actually did. So the idea of the puzzle could be something as simple as, I need to get across this cavern, and it doesn't seem obvious how to do it. We hear creatures down below. We see that there's really difficult terrain, whatever it is. That could be a puzzle that you're trying to solve. And it should be a more major puzzle. It's not, can I get through a door that has a needle trap in it? It's really something substantial. When we talk about a role-playing challenge, that could be something, let's say you run into a goblin in the dungeon who's in a maze, and with the proper role-playing, he's going to help you get out of the maze because he knows how to do it. It could be trying to get past some kind of gatekeeper. There's a magic mouth of some type that you have to have a conversation with to try to get them to allow you, or it could be anything, right? So if we're talking about something that's not specifically a dungeon, maybe it's, you have to talk to somebody who's in the raiding party. The raiding party got you there. Now there's somebody in the raiding party you want to talk to so you can get to that next stage of the adventure, something like that. Savage Worlds has some interesting things that could come into play from a mechanic standpoint. One of them is dramatics tasks. So if this is not something that you want to be real, sort of roll by roll, let's say our cavern. Okay, well, I'm going to try to see if there's anything on the other side. Well, now I'm going to try to get a rope up on one of these hanging things. Now I'm going to try to swing across. Now, and if you just don't want to keep doing those rolls, dramatic tasks can help. It's got a lot of roles, but now the players can do that narrative description of what they're doing, how they're trying to leverage their skills to support each other, to get a set of tokens. And if you get all the tokens, then you've succeeded against a challenge. If you fail, well then, maybe you can't do it, somebody falls in, whatever. But dramatic tasks might help when you do this puzzle concept or trying to get through one of these ideas. Um, Social conflict could also come into place if we're talking about a role-playing situation. So there's some cool little mechanics that might be useful in that particular numbers 2 room of the dungeon. I did mention, but not all these things have to go in the same order. So I'll talk about the third item, which is now a trick or a setback. Well, maybe that takes place before the puzzle. Obviously, the entrance has to come first, right? But so let's talk about trick and a setback. That's the third. So this is kind of related to that hero's journey, right? We're on an upswing. We solved a thing. We think we're moving forward, and now there's a setback. We get pushed back a little bit. It could be a number of things. It could be just as easy as actually finding what you think is the solution. So go back to our golden dagger. They got into the dungeon. Maybe they had to get across this cavern, and now they find the room that has the golden dagger, and they take it and they're ready to go, and it turns out it's not real, and they discover there's something else going on here. This isn't real. Maybe they then have to discover a secret door, or they have to search around and look at something to figure it out. That's a setback. They thought they were over. They were kind of tricked, and some other things could be something that actually causes some problems. They are successful in this room doing something, but now other things happen. Maybe they run into the lieutenant of the bad guy. He comes in, or she comes in. Lots of things you can do that. Now, some other Savage Worlds mechanics that could come into effect that would be kind of cool would be, if this is not the important part of it, let's say the setback is you get in there, you've solved the problem, but now a set of guards the set of guards saw you go across this cavern, and now they're coming, or you're trying to get at you. Okay, well, maybe this is a good chance for a quick encounter. Quick encounters allow us to sort of run a whole scene with just a couple of dice rolls, and then get what's the outcome. Maybe you got a wound, maybe you got fatigued, maybe you were super successful, whatever. But it's a cool mechanic if this is not the important part. If you want to have something big like this lieutenant and some forces, and that's going to set you back, and you're going to have to figure out how to get around or whatever. But if you don't want to run through that because that's not the important thing, and you want to slog through another battle, maybe quick encounters is a way to handle that. So that's a cool mechanic that comes into play. The other side of it is, as we talked about, it's not an attrition system like D&D. So every one of these encounters, if there's something that's really difficult or could cause damage or really could drive the resources of the players down from a PowerPoint standpoint or whatever, that could be very dangerous. Going into the battle with the kind of the final foe already being at 3 wounds could be pretty tough. Now, if that's what's needed, because that's the gist of it. They're coming in completely beat up, knocked down, and now it's really, they'll have to role play their way out of the next encounter versus just come in guns a-blazing. Okay, well, just don't take agency from the players. Let them make those decisions, right? So that was our third room, which was a trick or a setback. And then the fourth room is the climax, the big battle. You run into the big bad evil guy, and all these things happen. It should be hard, should be difficult, but not obviously impossible, right? But hard fight. You finally run into the lich, and you're now trying to explain to lich why he should give you the dagger, because you're the good guys, whatever, or you're actually evil and you're fooling him, whatever it is. But it's a big deal, right? Now now you got the final thing you're trying to do. And if it's a big bad guy, be careful how you design the encounter, because now we're talking about Savage Worlds. There's that chance to do the one shot with exploding dice. The old saying that peasant with a pitchfork can take out a hero in Savage Worlds if they roll good enough. And so keep that in mind. And I actually did a video on how to make challenging encounters in Savage Worlds, and make it challenging, add layers, make it so the players can't hit the big bad guy, shot one. He should be under cover. He should be protected by lieutenants. all those things fall into place. So Savage Worlds rules really don't lend themselves, I think, to having like one big guy sitting there where you're going to go attack, because you'll now have, if a party of 4, you'll have 4 attacks. He'll have 1, even if he's got something that gets rid of his multi-action penalty. But it's really, and sooner or later, somebody's going to get an explosive roll. They're going to be spending bennies, and he could be taken down. You have to do it so that the players have to fight their way to be able to take on that person. Personal opinion. Obviously, maybe it's cool if in the trick or setback, those lieutenants, that helps make it easier if they figure out a way to get through them. Lots of cool stuff you can do there, obviously. So big deal. Keep the encounter design with that in mind. And then the final room, you may think, well, that was it, right? Fourth, you did the climax. The final room, or the final part of the 5-room dungeon, is the reward or resolution. So when we talk about reward, this could be where they actually get the golden dagger, and they finally find the real golden dagger. So this is where they can get the MacGuffin. It's where the adventure's over. What's kind of interesting is when we talk about reward and revelation, there may be something that drives the adventure forward that is revealed now. So it can be simple. They got the dagger, great. But wouldn't it be much more interesting if they get the dagger and somebody with the occult skill notices that there are some ruins from the evil deity, or there's something evil about this. Well, now they got a question. Wait, why does the king want this golden dagger? I'm supposed to save everything, but it appears that it might be evil, or it maybe have some kind of arcana that's not right. And what's going on? There's a revelation. So they have the climax could be simply they got the reward, good for them, but it'd be cool to do a revelation which then drives the adventure forward. So you, using the 5-room dungeon concept, you're able to kind of put a structure around how you build something that the players can work through. Now, it feels kind of railroady, get it, but nothing says you have to take away the player agency with how they solve things, how they move between these different scenarios. It's up to you. It's really a framework that defines it. And Savage Worlds, you just got to be a little careful, because with exploding dice and the way it's set up, you can use the tools in the toolbox, like dramatic tasks, to make certain things more interesting than just die rolls. You have to be worried about exploding dice, which then makes it harder later on in the 5-room dungeon to really accomplish what you need. So just stuff to keep in mind, because it is not an attrition system. So 5-room dungeon, we got the entrance, potential guardian, puzzle and a role-playing challenge, trick or a setback, the climax, big battle, big guy, and then the reward that might have a revelation. That's the 5-room dungeon. Thank you again. I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff, support us so we can buy more Savage World stuff to talk about with you guys. Thanks so much.
I'm stuck in a deep game, all the tropes are the same, and my armor and